All right, so now we're going to move on to the last section of this chapter, and that is going to be section 8.6. And here we are going to learn about and apply the law of cosines. All right, once again, this video is going to have, or this section is going to have 3 videos. In video 1, we're just going to go over, like we did the last one, for the law of sine, why it works. In video 2, we'll go through examples. And in video 3, we'll go through applications. All right, so we're going to be talking about the law of cosines. And now, when we're talking about the law of cosine, remember, when we were using the law of sine, we needed to be given an angle and the opposite side, and then we needed to know at least one of the combinations of one of the other angles to solve for the missing side. So we needed to be given an angle and a side across from each other, and at least one other side or angle. For a law of cosine, what we need is 2 side lengths and the measure of the included angle, so you can think about it as SAS, side angle side. And then you can have all 3 side lengths. All right, so it's either, let me just erase that, I'll go back to here. So, or you can have all 3 side lengths or SSS. All right, so in a triangle, you need to be given either 2 sides, so we'll say A and B, and the included angle, so then you need to be given this angle, or you could be given all 3 sides. All right, so it's either A, B, and the included angle, or all 3 sides. All right, so that's what you need in order to apply the law of cosine. So now let's go through the formulas, and then we'll go through why it works. All right, so now for the law of cosine, there are 3 different formulas that we will use. All right, and depending on the formula, it's really all the same, but because we have A, B, C, and we're labeling the sides A, B, and C, depending on what sides you want to solve for is depending on which formula we'll use. All right, so once again, everything is in ABC. So when you're filling this in, if you have a different triangle, let's say that the triangle is TUV, next to it, if you wanted to, just to help you with the formulas, you can write A, B, C, and this won't be A, this won't be B, and this won't be C. All right, you can do that to help you fill in the missing parts of the triangle. All right, so let's say you want to solve for either this side A or this angle A. You would use this formula. All right, and the formula is, it is your side A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared minus 2 times B times the cosine of angle A. All right, so the reason why we can solve for side A or angle A with this is we only have one side of one part of the side A, and we only have one angle with that angle A. We have multiple B's and multiple C's in here, so we're not going to be able to use this formula to solve for B or C. We wouldn't use it to solve for the angle B or angle C because it's not even in this formula. All right, then your second one, you would use this if you want to solve for angle B or side B, because the same thing, you only have one of the sides in this formula and only one of the angles B. The way that you can remember this is if you're trying to solve for side B, well then the other 2 sides that you're not trying to solve for are being added together, so they're being squared and added together, and then it's minus 2 times those 2 angles, and then it's just that angle B that's opposite of the side that you're trying to solve for. All right, now that might have confused you with the way I was explaining that, but just write these formulas down, and we'll go through how we would use these. Like I said, you really don't have to remember all 3, because they're just denoting 3 here because we have 3 different sides of A, B, and C, but really it's all just the same formula that we're using every single time. And we can talk about in class and specifically how we can not necessarily have to denote it by A or B. I always will when we go through problems. This way it has something for us to fill in. I will always be using this method where I will write in A, B, or C, and then I will then fill in the other side so I know which one I'm going to use. And essentially, you're always going to be doing the same thing. It's just whatever side you're filling in, whatever side you're trying to solve for, it's the other 2 sides will be squared and added together, and then it's minus 2 times those 2 sides, and then it's the angle opposite of the side that you're trying to solve for. All right, and we know we're going to use cosine for this one because it is the law of cosine. All right, so now let's go ahead and show why it works. All right, so if I have this triangle here, let's just label this A, B, C. So that means this side here will be A, this side here will be C, and this side here will be B. All right, so just like we solved for the other one, if we draw an altitude going from one of our angles to the opposite side, we can then label this as our height, and we'll label this H. All right, now for this segment here, we can just label it X, just one of our unknowns. We can just label X. So that means then that this segment we can label as B minus X. Because whatever this length is here, we know that this length will be our total side B minus the length of that X. All right, so now if we wanted to solve, let's just say angle A. So let's just highlight angle A. Not angle A, I meant to say side A. All right, so if we want to solve for this. Well, since we know that this is an altitude, we know that this creates a right triangle. So I can then say that A squared is equal to H squared plus this side here, which is denoted by B minus X squared. All right, so I can then FOIL this out. So then we would have A squared is equal to H squared plus B minus X squared is B minus X times B minus X, which is B squared minus X B minus XB plus X squared. So I know that this here is going to FOIL out to B squared minus 2XB plus X squared. All right, so now to answer, or to keep going from here, we're going to have to do a few things off to the side to solve for this. So the first thing that we solved for was, we were solving for A, here, this A squared, all right? So we were using Pythagorean theorem for just this green triangle. Well, if I highlight this triangle yellow, we can solve for this triangle as well. I know that C squared is equal to H squared plus X squared. So C squared is equal to H squared plus X squared. Well, in this formula that we just got for solving for that green triangle, I have an H squared plus an X squared. So I can substitute C squared in for H squared plus X squared. So right now I have A squared is equal to B squared, because we had that already, plus C squared, because H squared plus X squared is C squared, minus 2XB. All right, now the last thing that we need to do is we need to substitute and solve for this X, because we just created that X when we were filling in this triangle. And now by drawing this right angle, we know that we do have a right triangle that we already used to solve for the Pythagorean theorem, but now we're going to use it to come up with the trigonometric ratio. So this side that we created is adjacent to this angle A, and this is our hypotenuse. And the one that we know that uses our adjacent and our hypotenuse is cosine. So we can say cosine of angle A is equal to our adjacent X over top of our hypotenuse C. So now, since we want to get rid of or substitute in for that X, I can then rewrite this and say, well, that means X has to be equal to C times cosine of angle A. So since X is equal to C times cosine of angle A, I can substitute that in for this X. So now we have A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared minus 2 times X, which we know is equal to C, times cosine of A times B. All right, so now we will just go ahead and rewrite this here to write it in the correct order. So we get A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared minus 2BC times cosine of angle A. All right, you will not need to show this in the test or anything like that, but just showing you how we come up with the formulas for cosine or for law of cosine. All right, so you will just need to be able to remember these. Now remember, I will use those specific formulas when we do questions on the in class, but you don't necessarily have to remember all three. If you just remember one and just what you have for that one formula, then you're fine for all three. All right, that's it for this video.